Good morning, Professor Ya'Kov.
Good morning.
I'm very, very happy to welcome you to the masterclass in SGLA. And I'm very happy that you are ready to share with us your thoughts. The title of our talk today is on contemplation, awareness, and consciousness in leadership. So I would like to ask you, what do you think leadership is, or how do you see consciousness and awareness in leadership?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. How do I see leadership is a tricky question, because leadership in itself is a kind of appearance or a symbolic appearance of somebody who leads others. And there are so many, lots of theories about what leadership is. I'll take the opportunity that we are in the middle of coronavirus crisis, which is a global one. And I keep asking myself and my students and my meditation students to ask the question not asked. Because what we are dealing now is a world yearning to go back to November, as if November was the kind of paradise, but it wasn't. And we ask questions of how to solve this or that problems, assuming that what was is still is, but in Zoom. And that's not the case. The question not asked in my tradition of training that is Zen, you have a koan. A koan is a question not asked. Not how to do academic teaching or leading or parenting or therapy in a new way, but what is therapy, what is leadership, what is knowledge. I'm in the middle of, I'm in my class, in my office in the academy, at the University of Tel Aviv. And I do ask myself kind of a deep awareness, not aware in a kind of a mindfulness practice, this or that, or how I chew and what the sounds are, but what's my job? What's my job? Is academy the same as it was a few months ago? What is knowledge? Who teaches? Who is in possession of the knowledge? Who owns the knowledge? Who are those ignorants? I'm joking, who used to sit in the class and I used to teach them something. And the question not asked is what the hell is this all about? It's the first time in history that all humanity shut down. All humanity. And it imploded on us. It imploded and crashed all or most of the values, the appearances, the institutions, the designations, the definitions of our possessions, of our relationship, of our parenting, of our leading, of our teaching, of our everything we do, everything we do. Someone says I'm untouched by it because I do my job from the university and it doesn't, by Zoom, from the university or from his home. And he doesn't ask, what's your job? And a leadership is part of it. Leading what? Communities are redefined now. What a community is. What is the new relationship between a community? Who are the members of the community that you're going to lead? What is the best theory, or maybe there isn't, for you to take when you're going to lead a new world in which all the institutions, the relationships, and the definitions are passé, are dated. So when you ask me about awareness, I start with this deep, troubling awareness that in any relationship, nothing is like it used to be in November. Nothing. I go out, nothing. Social distance, masks, empty classes. I guess the students will not come back to the classes. I guess next year we'll face empty classes. I guess we'll have to change the whole system of what is knowledge and how it is acquired. And it will have to be collaborated. We'll have to
beyond the empty mirror.
Beyond the empty mirror, yeah. We'll have to you will have to learn and to explore together, and the leader will be somebody who is also at the same time aware that he is led. Okay, because he is in a kind of a network, part of a network, not leading the network, but 1 centimeter above, seeing something maybe that others don't see, because he is aware. But he is not aware in the old-fashioned or in the common definition of awareness, be aware to your feelings and all that stuff.
Yes.
I think global waves of change, we feel them now. And for the illustration, I'll go to one of our games that we do with our students, you and me. And the game is electing a leader from the point of view of not knowing anything. I'll describe the exercise, which I do in real time in real organizations too. We gather about 15 people, and they have to elect a leader. They know each other for a few months or weeks or days, and I forbid them to use any pre-knowledge they have on any of the participants. So they have to start from nothing. They say, I have to start from nothing because I have no knowledge. I forbid also any knowledge or any use of a knowledge of a theory of leadership. I think that leaders are this, I think that leaders are that. He's an old man, so he's experienced. He's a young man, so he has a full of spirit. And she is a woman, he is a man, or any kind of pre-knowledge about anything, because the point of this exercise, this game, this very serious game, is to create circumstances in which a leader will emerge. This is the main word, emergence, okay? Not somebody who is propagating himself or pushing himself, not somebody who is already known as a good speaker or a good man, but something that happens on the spot. It will take 1 hour, it will take 2 hours, it will take 5 hours. Sometimes in organizations, they do it for 5 or 6 hours. And they start from what? They start from awareness. They start from observation. I look at you looking at the screen now, and you're Shlomo, but you're new to me. And I have to find the kind of awareness that helps me or puts me in the position of not knowing Shlomo in order to know Shlomo. There's a famous...
What using the same name, it's a problem.
The same name, but what is in a name, said Shakespeare, okay? What's in a name? You are the Shlomo from November. but now you're Shlomo from the Shlomo that I have in my mind is Shlomo from November. But now it's a June Shlomo, and it's a smiling Shlomo on the Zoom. I can't touch you, I can't hug you, which I used to do, and we used to do. And I'll give you a quotation from the Diamond Sutra. Diamond Sutra is a very important sutra in the Mahayana Buddhism. I come from Buddhism, from Zen, from Mahayana Buddhism, and the 5th chapter of the Diamond Sutra says, the Buddha asks one of his students, how can the Buddha be seen? How can he see me? Using the bodily form, which is the forms, your glasses, the bald head, or the smile that I know. These are bodily forms. And the students says to Buddha, I can't, because you taught us that appearances are only appearances and they are illusions. And the Buddha said, right you are. Appearances of bodily forms are only illusions. Only when you know that they are illusions, you can see me. And then you ask, that's a chapter. Chapter number 5 in Diamond Sutra says that all appearances or all bodily forms or all attitudes, attributes, characteristics, designations, definitions, the known world is all of it, says the Buddha, projections and illusions. Even the one I see now in front of my eyes on the screen is an image of a Shlomo that I have in my back, in my past, but now something is emerging. I see in the way you smile, something is emerging now. This emergence from unknowing is the body of that game that we do. So they have to start from awareness. They have to start not from knowledge, from awareness. Awareness is a kind of antidote to knowledge, okay? I'm not against knowledge, but knowledge is a bunch of integration of illusions and definitions and attitudes and appearances. And they have to start from observations.
One of the, I heard a saying from the East that says, beware of the dead knowledge.
Yeah.
So
and knowledge becomes dead knowledge instantly. It is as if you go on an unknown road or path in the forest, and what do you know about the path? You feel it, you explore it. You emerge as an explorer of the path, but you don't know the path. If you say you know the path, you ignore the fact that something happened yesterday and the weather is different and the trees fell, or you don't know the path. The only way you can walk in the path is to forget your knowledge, to use it when you want to use it. But the body knows, the eyes knows, the observation knows, the awareness knows how to emerge as a path walker, which is in a kind of immediate exploration. And when the people are thrown into that exercise or that game, they become embarrassed. They don't want to do it because they're not used to start from observation. So they start looking at each other, how you sit, what you dress, how you smile. That's it. Bare information. But it is in few minutes we see that this is a kind of a rich information that emerges in the relationships that are created in the game, and somebody emerges as a kind of a leader. Whenever somebody says, you know the game, you know the rules of the game, when somebody says, oh, I know Shlomo, he's an ex-judge, or he's a good man, and he spoke last time, he was very good, I forbid. And whenever somebody says, I think a leader should be someone like Shlomo, I forbid. And I forbid this, I forbid not as a kind of rules of a game for the fun of it. It is because awareness is a kind of a suicide of knowledge. And it has to feel the what we call in Buddhism interconnectedness, but deep interconnectedness. The word interconnectedness or interdependence is a kind of missing the point, because it assumes that things are different, but they have some kind of interrelationship. But Buddhism says that they are interrelated in the first place, that they are being realized by not them. What is so essential in Buddhism, the non-self? It's not no self, it's non-self. I cannot live, I cannot talk, I cannot breathe, I cannot walk, I cannot lead, I cannot teach, I cannot be a parent without the world coming to me and creating me. So I emerge as a kind of the relationship, Buberian relationship of I and thou is the whole world. Thou is not you, is not only you, is what you are connected with other people, plants, breathing, knowledge, sorrow, pain. I'm interconnected to that. I'm not interconnected to you. So the better translation of the Paticca Samuppada, which is the word we use in Buddhism, is co-arising. How do you create a context of co-arising? And co-arising can flourish when it kills the knowledge. As the Zen master in the 8th century said, kill the Buddha, kill your parent, kill your knowledge. And then, when we face now this horrible situation in which all is crashed, and it is economical, it's psychological, it's political, it's medical. Everything has to be redefined. Everything. Not trying to go back to those old forms or bodily forms that we use and then say, okay, we'll do it by Zoom. Maybe the definition of your personality, the definition of your being, to be or not to be, how to be. How to be a professor. No, not how to be a professor. What is to be a professor? What is to be a leader? A new definition of a leader, because a new definition of community has come up, okay? A new definition of relationship. I go for a few moments to Ananias. Ananias was a Norwegian philosopher, and he coined the term deep ecology. Deep ecology in the 70s. He's not alive anymore. And he was influenced by Buddhism, by Spinoza, by other thinkers, and especially by Dogen, who was a Japanese teacher, great teacher, 13th century. And he says two things about ecology, what he called deep ecology, that we usually don't say or don't ask or don't explore or don't take into account. One was consciousness. When we deal with ecology, when we deal with the community, we deal with all kinds of relationships of the economical point of view, from the economical point of view, from the psychological point of view, from the political point of view, fight of forces and and all kinds of forces, but we don't take the training of consciousness as the basis of all that. We take we take as a given the forces that are playing around in the arena, but we don't ask about the arena itself, okay? And we don't ask about those who enter the arena. So Ananias said consciousness is the basis of looking at the ecology and saying, and exploring something about the ecology. It's not the legal means, it's not the political means, it's not the chemical means. All this has to be based on a deep consciousness, and that is the second point of the size of the self, of the size of the self. What do I mean in the size of self? What does he mean, size of self? We always talk about realizing ourselves, okay? And Ananias asks the same question. We want to realize ourselves, but what is the size of the self and what it is made of is quite a different and difficult question to answer. And his answer is all that. So what do you lead when you lead? All that is the self. The self is global. The self is human. The self is the trees. The self is the mushrooms under the trees. The self is the breathing. The self is the water. And then you add these two attributes, or these 2 points of Ananias. One is the consciousness, the mind working beneath and as a basis of all that, and then the size of the self, which is all that, and then you approach ecology in a quite different way. So going back to our game of electing the...
And also, if I may ask, is how do you see leader and a follower? So it's beyond the leader and the follower, as I understood.
I think what is emerging in the game that they have to collaborate, not to propagate, and not to count on previous knowledge. They have to collaborate on the spot. They have to observe very keenly because, as you know, somebody says something about somebody else, A says something about B, but the way A says something about B, I find something that I didn't know about A, although the subject of the sentence is B. And then B reacts, and then C reacts to both of them, and they have to collaborate even when they have some opposition to the game itself. But then sometimes opposition to the game itself is opposition to the way things are. Things do not go into my matrices. Look at the world now. They do not go. They never went. They never agreed to the matrices of human being. So it's a kind of a never-ending fight between men who wants to impose his illusions and appearances and definitions of what is a tree and what is not a tree, what is a man and what is not a man, what is a follower and what is not a follower, who is a leader and who is a follower. And many Zen teachers say, you want to know who is the Buddha? Those who are sitting in front of me are the Buddha, okay? Because I'm being trained as a Buddha. I mean, I don't mean a kind of position. I mean, as a kind of man, I'm being trained as a kind of Buddha because of my followers, because of my co-human beings, because of you, because of my son. That is the way I'm trained to be a Buddha. Okay, by not me. I just one sentence. I'm trained to be a Buddha by not me.
My knowledge power.
No, sir, it's not the definition of no self, but not me.
Yes.
Okay?
What I stuck, you know, when he was talking in my knowledge, and I think maybe also others. For example, the question that I have now, what if we do this game via Zoom? So can you imagine what's gonna happen?
Yeah, I can imagine. I've never done it in Zoom, but
Maybe we do it in our program.
Okay, we cannot do it now because
We
it's
explore.
recording, but let's do it. We'll do it. We'll do it. You know, somebody asked me,
we see all the time, we understand that this is an illusion. So I'm trying to touch the screen, but you know, there's nothing beyond the screen. I'm touching to hug the screen. I cannot hug the screen. I can hug the screen, but only the screen. Yeah. So I sometimes we forget that it's only an illusion. It's only on the screen.
Yeah.
But what I realized, from my experience, that although it's a screen and although it's via Zoom, this kind of interconnectedness and the feeling of being connected with people is still there. So it's still, when I had, for example, 150 students, people talking to them, and I felt the energy. I don't know if you saw the movie, The One Field. So we know that energy goes beyond the distances. So do you feel this kind of energy, or do you think we can feel this kind of energy? I took you to another place, but it comes to my mind.
It's not a question of Zoom or not Zoom, because most of the time, most of what we call our world, okay, my world, your world, my being, consists of illusions. Not all illusions are bad, but consists of appearances. When I say Shlomo, something in my mind, something in my heart smiles, even if I don't see you, okay? And I can, something else comes to mind and I fear. Something else comes to mind and I worry. My son, for instance, sometimes. It's unbelievable how right are the Buddhists when they say that all is illusion and projection. That doesn't mean it's bad. That doesn't mean it's all bad. But the awareness or the non-awareness of this nature of our consciousness brings a lot of fear and anxiety and suffering. Being aware that most of our world is imagined, unless I touch something and bump into something, being aware of that can train or practice us, can give us a beautiful practice of freedom. All is imagination. Oh, the eyes give us an imagined world, not a real world. The ears give us imagined voices. Okay, something is happening, but the channels of the senses are the channels of the cultural, psychological, and personal definition of what is happening. We don't get pure voices. We don't get pure sights. The internet is full of illusions of the sight, of the seeing. Okay, so there is no escape from that. There's no escape from imagining. But when you are aware, you asked me about awareness. When you are aware of the forms and attributes and imagination and illusions and appearances of the world, you can be free of them and use them. I cannot go into a meeting with my dear friend Shlomo without imagining Shlomo. Otherwise, I'll ask you, excuse me, who are you? Tell me a bit about you. But then we have at the same spot, I have to erase you and meet you. I have to erase you. I have to commit suicide. And it's a kind of suicidal way of looking at things. And then what is happening even right now between us will never happen again. It's emerging.
Totally new, it's emerging, yes.
Totally new, emerging now.
I would love to ask you and say something. First of all, I didn't mention that you are one of my great teachers. And I'm looking at you as a great teacher for many, many years. And we were sitting together for a few years, once a week, if you remember, writing the concept of SGLA. And this masterclass is actually an invitation for a global SGLA. We try to do it global physically, but now, Corona times, COVID-19 times, something is opening in a different way. So it has become global.
Yeah.
And our first course in September will be global. We already have people from Europe, from the Netherlands, from Germany, from Vietnam, from the States. Australia, it's a bit problem because the time in Australia is a bit, but we had also some a woman that was working on the Future Generations office in Australia, and she's joining us at her midnight or something. So the question, if you can say some words beyond what you said, I'm trying to be attached to something which is untouchable, but how do you see our calling or our high purpose in SGLA now emerging all over the world? I will be very happy if you as my teacher will say some words, although it will be a Quran at the end, I know, but say some words on how do you see it now come out from the social ashes of the COVID-19. I know that things will be totally different, and it won't be a change, it will be a kind of a transformation. So I'm trying to figure out what I have to do this morning beyond sitting on my chair or meditating or contemplating. What is the calling from the world that calls me, or the future that calls me to listen to it and to do in order to create a, let's say, better world, or in order to train leaders to create a better world?
I think, in many worlds that we experience in our daily life, the old notions of the medical matrix, okay? A doctor, patient, a teacher, student, a father, son,
The leader and follower.
And followers, is collapsing. Even before November, it's collapsing. The new world, I don't know the shape of the future. So many people are trying to see how many cars will be and where we will live and how and what kind of house. I have no shape of that, but I have a very definite shape of a new world of collaborative leadership. The lone leader, the charismatic lone leader, will not survive. Or if he will survive, he or she, we can bring a new paradigm of collaborative leadership. It has been done even in hospitals, by the way, in Rambam Hospital in Haifa, they have a kind of a parliament of patients and doctors and so on. In psychiatry, they follow what is called the open dialogue, which was created in Finland a few years ago, already 20 years ago, between patients and psychiatrists. They work together as therapists, which means that the patient himself, the word patient itself is kind of something that we have to redefine, okay? The patient itself, his family, his friends are co-therapists in open dialogue. So many new paradigms.
Also maybe the healers of the psychologists, the healers of the...
Right, therapists and so on. They talk about intersubjectiveness and so many new words, but still I had, for example, I had about a month ago a Zoom meeting with therapists, and they asked questions about the settings because they can't sit in the same room, you know, the old-fashioned room where two armchairs and tissues in the middle and talking. And I said, why don't you ask questions like I ask myself about my professorship, my job in the university? Why don't you ask the deep setting, about the deep setting? What is therapy? What's your job? It's not the old job zoomed. It's not that. Unless you ask if therapy is so natural just in sitting together in two armchairs in a tissue box in the middle and talking. And it shocked some of them. Yeah, we have to ask that question. So what is therapy? What is leadership? I think collaboration, which is a too nice word, you know, it says, okay, we'll work together. There's no choice but working together. Because the collapse in economy is global, not local. The collapse of the institutions and tourism and that network, we have to ask as leaders, as emerging leaders, what do we need?
I want to ask another question.
Sure, go ahead.
I see it, the whole COVID-19 is kind of an illusion, because at the end of the day, people were dying and people will continue dying. And the kind of anxiety that the world is now living, mainly because of the, I think, digital networks or you know, or Facebook or these kind of social networks, it is more psychological in my point of view than the whole real danger from this virus.
I agree with you.
How do you really see that what caused most of humanity on the world just to stop the economy, which in one way I see it like it's a miracle, it's a good miracle. But how do you see what happened just now? You know, for example, I don't know, any kind of flu before, SARS and other, they were killing many people. People were dying out of anything. And I saw a week ago, you know, the numbers in Israel that much less people are dying this year than the last year. So, and still there is...
In total,
yes. And still there is the locks, and still there is the quarantine, and still there is a mask, and still there is a huge history. So there is something which maybe is a psychological problem of the whole world. Maybe the whole world is getting mad.
Absolutely. The epidemic is psychological. And I don't know much about the medical side of that strange, mysterious virus. It is a virus. It's not an illusion. I guess so, unless there's some conspiracy I don't know of. but it's not a conspiracy. There is a real virus. And you're absolutely right. But when people ask me about death, I say the problem of death is not death, but the fear of death. Okay? Our problem of death with death is not death, but the fear of death. You know, the famous story of Rav Nachman, not from Breslov, the Rav Nachman, the old Nachman, 2,000 years ago, who died and connected to his disciple. He said, Rabbi, how was it? It was very easy, like taking a hair from milk, a glass of milk. But if HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God Almighty, will invite me back to this world, I will not come. The fellow said, why? He said, from the fear of death. Because of the fear of death. So, we can be very smug about it. We have to be modest. The fear is real, okay? It's real. And it moves worlds. But when we think that fear is about something, for instance, a virus or Shlomo or my enemy, we are in a deep illusion because we think that there's an object, but the object is object of the mind. Be compassionate to your enemy is a very good saying, but the problem starts with the nominating of somebody as your enemy. So compassionate is a latecomer. Compassion is too late for real awareness. So fear is there. Fear is there because the definition of being is so narrow. So everything is threatening me. But if I'm part of a net, okay, the net will survive even if I'm weak or even when time comes and I'll go, okay? So when Ananias asks, what is the size of self? I add, we have to ask the size of self, the expansion of self in terms of space and time. In space and time, it not all began with me, it not end with me, and collaborative leadership, you must know it, your what you did in the parliament, future generations. That's what you did, concern for the future generations. So it didn't begin with me, it will not end with me. My size of self, it's not, no, it's not, you know, magnanimous that I'm so big, but I am big. The Hindus will say, the Upanishads will say, yeah, you're big, you're that, you're all that. And when you're all that, you will still be fearful of death. Yeah, I guess so. Me too. Okay. But the perspective of awareness is not inside awareness, it's not in soul awareness. It's not something that happens between me and me. It's not psychotherapy of me, within me in my biography. It's an ecological psychotherapy, which means when I cure you, I cure me, and when I'll go away, you or somebody else or the world will still be there. But that is when the separate self has the courage to die and revive and re-emerge as something else. And it's reviving and re-emerging all the time with not me. And not me is a collaborative leadership. It has to be collaborative leadership, even in the practical aspects of the new world. It has to be. And then the awareness I call for is awareness of listening to not me's in the community and emerging as a new leader who is a product of not me, of not me's that are members of that community. Okay?
My dearest teacher,
We have 1 or 2 minutes, so.
when I hear you, I get goosebumps. Are they real?
Thank you. And next time we will try that game, which is a very serious game. But I'll tell you something for ending the meeting. I had a Zoom meeting with a rabbi from the Beit Daniel in Tel Aviv, which is a synagogue. And he asked me, what do you miss in the Zoom meetings? What are you missing? And I said, the smell. And there was a delay in the technology of the Zoom. And he said, for me, it's smell. And we both said, the smell of people gathering in the synagogue. And I said in the Sangha, okay, Zoom, a new world and new opportunities and new community. That's fine. That's it. A new word, a new way of knowledge, of gathering, of exploring. But the smell.
I sent, many years ago, my daughter was in South America. Her name is Moria, and I sent her a letter. We didn't have this kind of tools then. So I said, Mori, I miss you. And then she wrote me back. She said, dear father, I miss nothing.
Mm.
So it's really, really great because she gave me a lesson that you're there, you're totally there, and she was missing nothing. So thank you so much, Professor Jacob Raz. I'm really, via Zoom or not via Zoom, when I hear your words, something in me is opening, and this kind of amazing understanding comes more and more. And as you said, I think I will still have a fear of death, and still at the end of the day, will be there. Yet, something in this kind
Nothing
of
wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
But something in this kind of understanding and listening, for me, it's like a magic, because it makes this moment, here and now, a different moment, an open moment, and more even loving moment. It's more on the emotional part. I think it's really, really great. And I want to thank you so much for many years together. I want to thank you for teaching me many years, for writing with me the concept of SGLA. And I want to invite with you all the people to come in September, and we're going to have a great new path.
Please do.
Nothing about it.
Thank you. I'm leaving.
תודה רבה, 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 רבה.